Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's video, we will be discussing one of the biggest companies around, Rolex. More specifically, we will be talking about the new 2020 Rolex Submariner. The Rolex Submariner has been around since the early 50s and has always been designed with professionals in mind. As the watch has evolved, the basic design has been somewhat the same, but today it is much more than the dive watch it was meant to be. We are going to look at how it has changed over the years and discuss the controversial 2020 update. Make sure to give a quick like before the video starts, and make sure to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you never miss any of our content. Back to 1953. Before we jump straight into the review of the 2020 Rolex Submariner, let's take a quick look at where it all began. In 1953, when Rolex first came about, America looked a lot different. While the country has gone through some vast changes, the Submariner has managed to maintain an integral part of many people's lives. It was created as a dive watch and beat out most of the competition during that time. The main goal of Rolex was to create watches that would become part of the daily life of those who bought them. They wanted them to become integral to the workforce, and that goal, more or less, has been accomplished. Rolex got what they wanted, to make the Submariner a staple of professional life. But it also continued its rise until it became a fashion statement. Not only did it gain traction among celebrities, but they weren't so expensive that the everyday working class couldn't afford them. People everywhere were able to use the Submariner as a fashion statement, even if they weren't going diving. We want to know your thoughts on the Rolex Submariner below. Have you ever bought one? If you prefer a different watch over the Submariner, let us know below. Rolex growing over time. The Rolex Submariner became an icon, both in the professional field and everyday life. For brands like Apple, they continue to create new products, building on top of the foundations they laid with the ones that came before. However, it has taken Rolex a long time to make a big change. They have made smaller changes to the Submariner over the course of the last 67 years. For one, it started as 37mm in diameter and gradually grew into a 40mm watch. As the watch has upsized, it has not gotten much wider, but instead grown clunkier. They have also introduced a ceramic bezel since the start of the Submariner. One of the smaller changes was when they began using white gold surrounds on the markers. By making small changes, the Submariner never deviated much from the original design that skyrocketed its success. And that may be why it is still so popular today. What do you think has allowed the Rolex Submariner to stay in such high demand nearly 70 years later? Do you think it has anything to do with how closely they stick to the original design? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. The most important watch of the last century. The Rolex Submariner is one of the most famous watches ever created and has transcended into communities everywhere. Rolex may just be the most important watch of the last century, and it does not appear to be going anywhere anytime soon. While the evolution of the watch has been subtle, it becomes more obvious if you look at the original next to a newer model. Over time, it has become larger with smoother and sleeker design. The Submariner is an iconic watch, from when it was originally released to newer models with subtle changes. However, the 2020 model may be their biggest step from the original. This new watch has been long awaited, and while the changes are yet again subtle, they aren't to be completely written off. The 2020 Rolex Submariner 41mm reference 124060 may just be what fans of Rolodex have been waiting for since the 50s. There are several small changes which stay true to the original design while contributing to a newer look for Rolex. What are your initial thoughts on the 2020 Rolex Submariner? Do you like the newer, more modern look, or would you prefer to have one of the originals? Share your answers in the comment section. Year of the Submariner. With the release of Submariner 41mm 124060, Rolex fans have been calling this the year of the Submariner. This is partly because of how long people have been waiting for this new watch, but also because Rolex renewed the entire Submariner collection this year. This included the Submariner 124060, as well as an assortment of Submariner date. This assortment includes multiple materials, from steel to white gold, and new colored bezels. The Submariner 124060 comes after the reference 114060 and is available in steel with a black dial and bezel. The update might look subtle, but all of the components are brand new. The diving capacities of the watch have stayed uncompromised during each update. but they have also become less relevant as time went on. The 2020 watch is meant to showcase the evolution of the Submariner, rather than completely change the design. So at first glance, it appears simpler than it is. One of the bigger changes was the size, bringing it from 40mm to 41mm. Fans of Rolex have mixed reactions to this new update. What are your thoughts on the new Submariner? Would you prefer to get the watch or something else from the revamped collection? New updates. At first glance, the updates to the Rolex Submariner seem subtle. For one, it only went from 40mm to 41mm, so it is barely any bigger. The crown guards and lugs were reprofiled, and the bracelet had to be made wider to accommodate for the increase in size. The power reserve was also raised to 70 hours, which is not something that would be noticed right away. In terms of competition, these minor updates brought the Submariner up to speed with similar modern watches. Some of the proportions were changed as well, giving the watch a more rounded shape instead of the square shape seen in previous models. These updates were meant to show a subtle evolution in the Submariner, while also providing a more elegant look. Fans of Rolodex and the Submariner have been split down the middle in terms of how great these changes are. Some say they are too subtle to matter, while others claim these minor changes are what Rolex is all about. What are your thoughts on the topic? Do you think the 2020 Submariner was a disappointing update, or do you think it was worth the wait? We want to hear your thoughts on it in the comments. Thank you for watching our new video on the 2020 Rolex Submariner. The changes to the watch have been met with mixed reviews, alternating between being too subtle or just right. The Submariner has been around for a while, and it is safe to say we will likely see more updates to it in the future. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Before you go, share your thoughts about the new Rolodex Submariner in the comments below.